So we are live now for our conversation with Eileen Perez. Eileen is going to join in a few seconds. There she is. So I am making Eileen in, and I'm going to see her. Now you are going to see her in a few seconds. We're connecting. Here is Eileen. Can you hear me?
Patience. Oh, pas de science.
Pas de science du tout, et beaucoup de bêtises. Good, you have done this before, right?
Yes, it's so interesting how what we think, we're so used to the immediate that when we do these things now, we realize, okay, this takes more time.
Absolutely.
Then you wait in people's Wi-Fi connection, and then to use Bluetooth or not to, because there could be delays. So I'm
Right.
learning so much.
Correct. You know what used for us the feeling of 15 minutes, now it's 30 seconds, and we get the same kind of dizziness about it and eagerness.
Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm home in Bloomingdale, Illinois. So I'm outside of Chicago, near a suburb where I grew up. And so I'm near my sister and her family and my large extended family that's in the Chicagoland area.
That is fantastic. Chicago has been hit quite early with the virus, hasn't it?
Yes. However, I think that they are having big success in having the tests available. And so I think basically we've been informed that the numbers are expected to climb because more tests are available as well. But people are still encouraged to be in isolation, or they call it sheltering in.
Right.
And now, a lot of people, the CDC has their idea not their idea, their structure of what they recommend.
Sure.
But I think with the sneezing and the coughing, people find, whether they're sick or not, that it's nice to wear a mask because you can't always catch. So, I think that the mentality of going out basically very minimally and being as cautionary with gloves and mask is so helpful. But it's a very challenging time for all of us to feel like we're doing enough, right? And then not to panic. So
where were you when this started to be really of a preoccupation for everybody?
Well, for us, I mean, Emmanuel, where were you 3 weeks ago? Were you in Dallas?
I was in Dallas, and to tell you the truth, actually, I had dinner with a couple of friends, and we decided to go to California because everything was going to be shut down. It was very clear, and we wanted to be with Andrew's parents and take care of them eventually and be in a place where we might be able to stay for a very long time. And when we arrived in the house, we got a text from these friends that they had the virus.
Oh.
Yeah, which, they are okay and they are fine. They went through it. It was not fun. But that means we had to isolate ourselves for 2 weeks and play that, saying, okay, don't touch what I touch and so on, which is very challenging. And I'm, very French. I like to touch. I like to hug. So that's a little difficult. And now we're okay. We're here.
Wow.
I know people who are stuck in Europe and who would like to be in the US and vice versa. So that's difficult. Yeah. How is your family dealing with this? Can they come and see you, or you're not seeing them at all?
No, we really are believing I think we're being very conservative because, so basically Solomon and I were in Hamburg. He had just closed his performances in London of Louisa Miller, and he had traveled to Vienna, and I closed Manon in Vienna. And then there was a cancellation from a Desdemona, so I stepped into Hamburg the following week, prolonging my stay in Europe about 1 week and a day more. But we had thought of having this vacation time to go sightsee and do things like that. But I took the job, and it was, the day I arrived was the day that suddenly the news of the virus was hitting all the theaters. So Vienna was canceling performances, but not determining further than
Right.
there was no end time. It was
Yeah.
like at first the Met was saying, okay, we're going to close. In fact, I think Traviata was still happening at the Met. Vertier, I know,
My
was
bohème,
about to
our
go.
bohème is
Ah,
still happening.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, now, eventually,
Yeah.
in the next
Yeah.
weeks. But
Yeah.
what I mean to say, since you asked, and actually when I think about this, I remember everything going so quickly because once Vienna shut, I think the last theater that was staying open was London, and Munich had closed. But Munich, of course, is the the southern part of Germany, and the north and the south actually run very differently. So Hamburg was still in one moment on from Wednesday to Thursday. Thursday there was a performance, and then a scheduled one for Sunday, two Otellos. And it was Wednesday that Trump had just, announced a travel ban going up Friday, effective midnight Friday.
Mm-hmm.
One of our friends, was like a brother to Solomon, called us. It was 3 a.m, and we were asleep, but we wake up early, and we saw this message. So from 5:30 a.m., 6:30 a.m., I'm on the phone and trying to figure out, okay, what to do. The show is even that night. Like, you can't, I mean, unless the theater was going to cancel, we were not going to hear news about that for another few hours.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, we all know when we travel, when you book your flights, usually it's so far in advance that usually even there's a change fee, and there's going to be a loss here, and I thought, okay, there's going to be a loss here. The key is now, let's find a way home. And then the countries, there became, this list of countries of having canceled flights, and the US saying no entry from these following countries. So then it's like, okay, a puzzle of like which country to hopefully buy a flight. And in a matter of an hour and a half hour, flights can sell out. And of course, as more flights are being canceled, more people are going to buy or figure out another route. So this was that was Thursday morning, basically.
Wow.
From 6:30 a.m. to about 10 a.m. But the show was going to go on. At that night, the evening, it was very, very sad circumstances, obviously, because of the news from Italy had already begun, hitting all of us with information of managers, some agents passing away. It was all happening really fast.
Very, very, very quickly.
But
very quickly.
And the window of determination, I think every country and every theater was trying to respond in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's certainly a lot to manage. So
right.
Tough. And this actually, it's very tough. But what's great about humanity, and when we're like, we're here with the Dallas Opera and all, you've been with Dallas now for years, and I have such great memories of, a long time ago, up even until the last visit I was there. It's so incredible how much you trust and how much you lean on the people that in the administration, and how much the rapport then means back to you. What you build is something that we can keep building on. So, my relationship with the Hamburg administration, though they went through a musical change, there were still, a lot of people in the administration that I knew. And so just to even have an email from someone that you can trust, and you have rapport, and they're doing their best, it's so comforting. It's so meaningful. And you just, you're together. And I think that that's the idea when we're like having this time with you. I know you and I go back to steps,
the
I would
last
say.
century.
But they built. Oh my God! When you say that, give me a hikimego. Okay, so but it wasn't automatic. Of course, there's a connection. And it's lovely and it's personal, but every project you keep building, and also the more rapport and openness we start growing and having more confidence, right? So I
Right.
mean, we say hello, and
Right.
this is very meaningful and valuable.
So I would say, Eileen, I totally agree with you. And people reveal themselves in time of crisis. And there are people you can count on, and I've not been disappointed by any of these. And the way some administration are dealing with us, and other of our colleagues are dealing with us, you say, okay, that was not very nice, but maybe I knew it was not going to be nice. And what you say about the rapport, let's go back to maybe music and our profession, and go out of this situation for some time at least. Building rapport with an artist throughout the years, this is so important, because a lot of what we do has to do with trust. And your success in a performance, your comfort in a performance, the way I can help you go through that sentence, which today is not very easy because there is a problem on stage, or you are a costume that doesn't fit. If I hear it, then
Yeah.
then you are going to trust me, and you're going to say, okay, if he's taking time there, maybe he's doing it for me, and I can trust that. But it takes time to build that trust. Like, okay, we're jumping together over that little gap, and trust me, I will hold your hand, and it's going to work. And it does work both ways. What has amazed me with working with you throughout the years is that I think the first thing we did was Manon in Covent Garden.
Yes.
It was years.
And I met you. I'm trying to remember how we met beforehand, because I knew when I arrived, you were very, very warm. And I thought, oh, he's so nice. But we hadn't worked together yet. No, because I should tell the world about this in a way. Our industry, of course, well, there are stages in the career. Sorry, I have like a piece of brush here on my lip. Sorry,
yeah.
But I felt it, so I couldn't speak. I think that we have stages of development, personally, artistically, and then of course, it's always with one another, and we mature. And when I look back at the time, I remember I was so scared. Because I knew it was 2 performances, and we would have a rehearsal. I had covered the role when it was on tour, so I knew, when you cover something, you just kind of get like an idea, and unless you do it, you really don't know. And a role like Manon is supremely musical, supremely theatrical, supremely a lot required of the voice. And when I met you, and I still remember Florence was there, the guest, and just to work with the French and work with the timing and feel like, okay, we're going to do this together. I don't know how you did it. You just did it. And I think that not everyone has that kind of experience.
Right. I didn't do it. You did it. And I remember.
See, I think you did it.
Believe me, you don't want to hear my Manon. But what amazed me then is your commitment. And I think, although I didn't necessarily conceptualize it, I saw you were, let's say, I wouldn't say I felt the fear, but you were nervous. But you were so committed, and I thought, I need to give her the right information, but don't give her everything right away, because I don't want to overload the process here. And in that case, as a conductor, as a coach, you have to really, as you say, this is a combination of vocal demand, musical demand, dramatic demand, plus the pressure of the career and what people expect from you, and so on and so on. So
Right.
I try to get to the place that I thought would be helpful in all of those categories, and then you go step by step. What absolutely amazes me, and I don't know any other soprano, at least, that I've worked with that has progressed as much as you have. It was very clear from the very first time I heard you that you were destined to have a star career and you deserved it. But you, every time I see you, I hear you, you are perfectioning this. There is another dimension that's there, and you connect those dimensions. That means the vocal dimension, and the dramatic dimension, they progress together. And that is quite extraordinary. And I remember, even when we did Thais at the Met,
Oh, wow.
which was, I think, one of maybe my biggest success personally at the Met in all the shows I have done, and I think was an enormous success for you too. And remember, one of these scenes, you are so far away, and it's
Upstage
so
and high. Yeah.
upstage and high, and
Yeah.
vocally super demanding with a tessiture that's high, and then you have to hit those high notes and so on. And with the distance, it makes the possibility to help for the conductor much more difficult, because you don't have to give that cushion. You cannot give that cushion of air, because there is no time to feel, okay, she needs time, just that half a beat or a quarter of a beat, and then I need to move, because by the time you are there, the voice is already somewhere else. That is that, and the Met especially is difficult for that because of the distance. So a lot of this becomes telepathy. You have to conduct the bar that's coming next, or the two beats that come next, and so you need to see where the voice is and say, okay, now the pressure is at 70. I need to push it down or up so she can make that note in a very easy way, or in the easiest possible way. And that's where that trust we were speaking about earlier is there. But to go back to my point, it's what is amazing to me is that progression you have. And we just worked in Prague on totally
oh my God,
different
the
repertoire. You
songs
did some
and the corn gold.
did some corn gold, and I thought, well, okay, Eileen wants to do this. I can see that, I can hear that vocally very well, but this is German, this is Spätromantik, or even different, and so on. And you just went in there, head first,
Boom.
and with
It
all
was
your soul and your heart. And that was just amazing, like you had done this all your life. So how do you see that development? How much do you plan that development? And specifically, for instance, how do you know you are ready to tackle this new role, or you go in a new phare? You go more dramatic or less dramatic, and so on. How do you make that planning?
I think, well, first of all, before you move on, for anyone listening live, that last portion, you want to rewatch that with Maestro Guillaume and just appreciate the wisdom and the humility, because, and the openness of character that you have within your soul, to then invite, you had the wisdom to see clearly what the artist needed. And in a
Oops, we lost Eileen. She went in another sphere. So Annie is going to text Eileen. That happens sometimes. There she is. Okay, Eileen is back. I'm going to add Eileen. She went to heaven for a few seconds. Here you are.
Hi.
Hi, you disappeared.
Well, I was saying you have the wisdom to see the architecture, or there's something so, like, that is not to be taken for granted. And I think that the progression, therefore, can happen within that context. So when you, the conductor, create, can see so clearly over and kind of pick your points, then into a conversation, we can go back and forth. I mean, when you talk about Thais, I just remember exactly the final scene, the death, the soaring up to the high A. we had so many conversations in the room about how to go about it, which of course, once you leave a rehearsal room and then you're on the stage at the different levels with the orchestra, everything changes.
And with also your other colleagues who have their own issues.
Yes, I remember Gerald Finley was had to the steps, you know, when you do even a new production, it can just be that whether you're in a revival or a new production, once you're on set, you are sitting in a chair that was not designed for you. So you have to ask, okay, can I be, you know, can we add 1.5 inches to this chair?
Right.
Can I change, you know, these little adjustments, because
and to
otherwise
which they
you
say,
don't
oh,
sit.
the diva is being difficult with the chair, you know.
But it's not. It's
not.
just, it's like, you know, putting on a gown that is either 10 sizes too big or 10 sizes too small. You have to be very clear. I am size, boom. And then from there you
boom.
You I didn't want to say 6,
not
but
boom.
I want to say 4. So, you know, you want to craft, but it's with humility. And I'll tell you, I think for progress to happen, it begins with humility, because you have to say, it's a balance, you know, at in one chance, when we perform, we have to be so confident, right?
Yes.
Which is so important. So I
that
would
balance
say
is tough.
To make progress, you need technique, you need humility, and then you need that rapport to go confidently forward. If I have a rapport with you, I mean, if I'm confident in here's what I want to do, but I come to you in our performances like, sorry, just follow me. Ew, like that's not the attitude that can really be sustainable. It's not a pleasure if you aren't collaborating. It becomes a defense and a little bit of a fight that uses unnecessary negative energy and then feeds more negative energy. And music is a sphere and a universe of love and of spirituality and of, you know, really storytelling. So if we are all just there for ourselves and self-preservation, yes, the Mozart Le Nozze di Figaro will always work. But it's so much more fun if you are open, and yes, there's mechanism, you know, mechanical things, but each level and the nuance that you can bring does not happen if you're an artist in just follow.
Right.
Just, it doesn't, you miss the joy, you miss a volume and a range of color, emotion, connections. It's not to say it will be bad. In fact, it could be, you could be absolutely brilliant. But I think that maybe you and I have felt in a way, a reward from having such conversations, like where we don't get offended. It's not personal. It's actually just about the music and also about each other. Like if I physically need more time to breathe, but I'm never determined. I think because my instrument, I'm pretty flexible, and there are times like now I know when I do that death scene, let the orchestra come in on the A. I will come in when I'm ready, come in, and then I launch. Like, and you'll hear it, and you'll hear it when I way down. And we have each other. But it took a while to see like how I want to approach it. And it's also, it's because she was dying. I didn't want to stand up.
Sure.
Too, remember? I mean, there was so much, it had to make sense for so many other reasons. But so I think that in a nutshell, that's why, well, I mean, and also that music, as you know, we all felt like if we took a step in any direction of movement, it kind of like would just, it was like a silk fabric that needed to just have the right lift and breathe. And it's such a stunning score.
Right.
I really, it's an absolute, it was an absolute pleasure. And
Right. So for me, what you say about this place we can go where all of a sudden, although there is an extreme difficulty, we are so much in trust of each other and we are so much into the spiritual magic happening in that moment. That's what I'm looking for in any performance. We don't get that so often, but we actually get it quite often.
I think in tragedies, you can get
Yes,
it.
yes, yes.
In a way, there's, I mean,
Yes,
with
yeah,
Verdi, you have it from the initial
right.
moment.
Yeah, but not in every performance.
But if the like you, I mean, the pressure, that would be a fun conversation with you and your first violin, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
all the
But what I'm talking about is this is something that doesn't necessarily happen every performance, and that's something that we are looking for and searching for. And there are several levels of this
ah.
incredible bless, all of a sudden instant where we connect at another level, and then it's beyond concept, it's beyond calculation. It just happens together.
Wow.
But what do you? Let's take this from another angle. Um, there are some artists like you I love to work with. It's always interesting. I always grow with you when I work with you. There are other artists, it's more work and we can have more rewards. Um, and how is this for you? I mean, how do you cope when you have possibly a conductor that is not as sensitive to your vocal needs or to your dramatic sensitivity? What do you do in that case?
In that case, I look for what is it that he is connecting to, and I focus on that. You know, I don't think it's very rare. Well, first, usually it could happen in concert repertoire,
Yeah.
but there usually is, I have to say, I think this is also the humility part. You have, it doesn't, it's not going to sound humble, but my mentality is he or she is trying to go after some sonic thing in their mind, okay, to match a picture, maybe like a painter.
Right.
I'm imagining that that's what your process might be as a conductor, because you have to breathe and that you have to expect whoa, and then listen and hear what it and then guide it. I imagine that's part of it. I didn't study it. I don't know. So I look to see, is there ever any sense of a pleasure or of an arrival of some moment, or how are they breathing? What is the energy? Where is the satisfaction? And if I can see something that gives me a hint, I just try to serve that and give that the shine and the glow. But whether he appreciates it or not, like, I can't help that. I mean,
Right.
it's not even just me at this point, right? It's how many people in a minimum orchestra, minimum amount of people in an orchestra are how many? Like 60?
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
if it's a Mozart,
so
would be 57. Yeah, yeah.
okay, 57 human beings who are not all playing at one time have to be there. And they have whatever's going on in their life. So to assume that you can, you have to inspire people to focus and be there, but you can't make people do anything, right? So I think that
Well,
I can see,
although you
like, it could
can't.
be their job, and
Right, right. But
you could
there are,
even do notes with one group, and I've seen this in different places. The performance, totally different group. 80% different people.
right,
And you
right.
hope the other person marked their score, and you think, I just worked so many details, and 80% of them are different now.
Right.
People, like, how do you do it?
Right. So, but on the other hand, what you say about you cannot force people into being in the right mind frame or attitude. There is a dynamic when you do opera, and then you have, let's say the 70 people in the pit, the 100 people on stage, and so on.
Yeah.
where those people who are maybe a little asleep or the naysayer are so in the minority that they have to go with that wave. And so that's what I like to, conductors are very paranoid by definition because you have to absorb what's happening around you. You have to
Mm-hmm.
feel, you have to
Mm-hmm.
also distance yourself from this. But I
Mm-hmm.
can't ignore where the fourth one is all of a sudden going like this, like, well, I didn't understand what he did, or I don't like that singer, and so on. And my
Yeah.
joy is,
That's tough. It's
yeah, but
so
my
rude.
joy is when that person all of a sudden is in such in a minority that all of a sudden it starts going with the flow, being very concentrated, adjusting with everybody, breathing with everybody. And there is definitely a power of a positive presence on stage or in the pit on your colleague. And the audience feels that right away. And so this is I think this is really part of our job to project this concentration and this way of aiming together. And as you
Yeah.
said, you are ready to make maybe a few steps toward your colleague conductor just to understand where he is so you can put him in a place that's comfortable. That's the same
Or
thing I
something
have
that
to do.
I can relate to,
Right,
In a
right,
sense, I guess I'm trying to take a step to then relate to something, and then it's not about me, and it's
right.
even not about them. It's about whatever they're after somehow. And and music and performing, it's like, here's the bar, and you're always like,
Right,
it leaves,
right.
it always eludes. Sometimes everything magically happens. Sometimes even with mistakes, there's something so, it just, it doesn't even matter. Like something can
Miraculous,
just
yes.
happen.
Mhm.
Miraculous, yeah. And the truth is that we will never know 100% anyone's experience. But that's also the part of the artist that, like, in a way, thank God we don't, in a way, because it's a gift that we're just supposed to give with no expectation, but with such a fine quality. How you give a gift. Are you going to wrap it? Are you going to put a note? Is it going to have a ribbon? How much time can you spend on it to present it? But we see kids at Christmas, right? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
done. They don't
Mm-hmm.
care. They want to go what's inside. Everyone has their reason why they bought the tickets to come see the show. And I think that that's also, in a way, none of my business, but then it could be my business. About it could be, I would love to tell you this story, and here's why. And again, like having these live sessions or people asking questions, we can then actually interact a little more with our audience. But we will never know. You just put your best out there because it's your best that day, and it has to be enough. And the rest, you leave it. You leave it with God. You leave it with music. You leave it on the stage. You leave it with that season. One thing I wanted to ask you: when you plan a season, how much? I mean, you have a team. I know that you plan with in every theater, and it's got to be a lot of, well, challenging, but also just fun and being creative about the operas that you would like to do next. So
Right.
I know that this season ended preemptively, for everyone. But how do you look forward to closing a season, beginning a new season, and in the midst of holding different positions, right? Yeah. How do you?
Okay, so when it comes to the symphonic world, we plan something like between 2 years and a year in advance, sometimes 8 months in advance, um, and you have very, very precise parameters that you need to respect. So for the Prague Philharmonia, with whom we have worked, and we're going to work next year, actually.
Can I interrupt? The Rodolfino is my favorite theater right now to
Right.
sing it. It's absolutely a
It's a jewel.
stunning.
Yeah,
It can do it. Oh wow, it's
right.
I love the space.
It's
I
a
love it so
beautiful
much.
instrument. So
Yeah.
the Prague Philharmonia is an orchestra. Who, the core of the orchestra repertoire is more classical, although we do also romantic and so on. So I have to really keep that repertoire in the center. So we do a lot of Mozart, Beethoven. I need to do a certain amount of that. Then I want to do a certain amount of Czech music. I want to do some contemporary music. I want to have enough pianists, not too many pianists in the season, enough violinists. I introduced a vocal component to the season because the symphonic conductors sometimes forget that you can have wonderful symphony concerts with singers, and they do it only when they have a Verdi Requiem, whereas I think it can be really fascinating. But then I really, personally, I've always loved to have a fil rouge, a theme, a dramaturgy that goes all over the season. So I really try to find something that is sometimes musical. It could be, Vienna and its influences over the centuries.
Oh
That's
wow.
the biggest, possible. It could be, I had a season which was the musical theme, then was composers who uh, take a piece of music from another composer and do something different with it. That can be
Oh.
an orchestration that is so idiosyncratic, so strong that the piece sounds differently. It can be also a piece that was not finished and that is finished by someone else. Or, and the extreme example could be what we did was a piece of Berio with fragments just written on a piano of is another symphony, and Berio kind of orchestrated it, and then he wrote in the style of Schubert what was missing, and then he wrote in his style what this music was provoking for him. So that was that was a
Wow.
theme for the whole season, and every single concert had this. And then I try to have another theme that can be, if the first theme is a musical theme, then I have another theme which is not musical. So for instance, one of the theme I had was double concerti. Every concert in the season had a double concerto or a duo. And somehow is these are parameters that constrain you a lot, but in the end it gives you a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
And then the pieces, you have created so many themes that the pieces try to make connection among themselves in the season that you had not even thought about in the first place. They start talking to each other without you planning it. That's
Yeah.
where it's beautiful. Um, Parameters can be, Eileen can work only in that concert, in that month. I have to move this other person without telling her that it's because Eileen can only that date, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, got you.
So there is a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
For the opera, it's somehow the same thing: availability of artists, the titles that the general director wants to work. David, also Lomeli, who works with us, as a strong input on all of this and is bringing a lot to the table. I I used to, when I was in Spoleto, I was the music director of Spoleto USA for many years. I used to say, I want to do this, I want to do that. No, there's so many beautiful pieces. I put, okay, here are the Wagner operas in my order of wanting to do them in the next 5 seasons: my Strauss opera, my Mozart opera, my Verdi opera, my French repertoire. And if it's Carmen, if it's Carmen, if it's Manon, if it's Manon, if it can be Peleas, yes, I'm very happy. So I am pretty easy when it comes to the choices of title, but we need to absolutely balance the season. So we need to have contemporary titles. We are trying, in Dallas, we have created a lot of new pieces. I think it's very important to prove the relevance of opera today and new opera. But you need a Mozart almost every season. You need a Puccini almost every season. And so you look, well, when is the last time we did Butterfly? Oh, there is a singer maybe that would like to do Butterfly. So let's push that. And the more a title is a classic title, I think this is a mistake that other contract companies can do sometimes, or that we can do sometimes as directors, is when it is a common, a bohem, you have to take real care in the way you cast it and you care for it. Because anything that I have planned thinking, okay, well, I need a performance in that slot. I need a concert to happen that week because the orchestra is free. And I know it's not going to be very good. You usually don't have good surprises. It's going to be like that. It's going to sound like you microwave something, and it's not going to taste very good. So you need to really pay attention to that to the best of your abilities. I have a question for you. We were talking about the magic of the connection in performances and how much we trust and the rapport that you establish with yourself, with the musicians, the conductor, your colleagues, the composer, and so on. When it comes to recordings, that's a totally different affair. So how do you deal with this? And do you enjoy recording in general?
I love recording, but I have actually very little experience in it. I've only recorded, for example, the Dvorak Requiem that just came out from a concert performance. That was a few years ago now.
But that's a concert performance.
It was a concert performance, but I do remember, I believe we had I was thinking about this because it was from a live performance, but we did do a couple of days of like retakes, you know, where you would stay and we'd get notes and then have a different rehearsal and be called to retake certain
and do
things.
patches and so on.
Yeah, things like that happened, but I don't get to give the input or feedback. I find that some voices record very well in that setting, and we all have the microphones at the same distance, and that in itself is already like, I think ideally to get each voice just sonically closer to what an experience could be in reality would take a very dedicated, someone who really knows you, someone who is going to take the extra effort to tune that to put your very best forward. And I had that with a couple of times actually for the recording of the Pro Arte Poème d'un Jour. I had a really wonderful audio engineer, and also for the Love Duets album, it was a great sound engineer. But in both, the Love Duets album was also recorded in a concert, like not a concert hall, but it was a larger space for the orchestra. So it makes a big difference. And I have a smaller recording coming out soon this week, where it was shocking how different if you get a small room with very dry and a certain pairing of instruments, like, wow, it can be a real challenge. So I don't have the answers yet. I'm experimenting. And the other huge element about a recording, beyond once you get the idea of what you want to plan, which for me is very elusive, it's hard for me to get the fil rouge. I need a partner to discuss that with. So I turn to, you asked me earlier about how do I know when to make a jump into a new repertoire. I really trust my teacher, and also I trust that the other voices that I love and I'm a fan of, you know, I saw that Vittorio dos Angeles had recorded Hernani, so I wanted to delve into that.
Who are those big, I mean, major soprano or non-major soprano you go to when you prepare a role? If you do Thais, you know, and
well, I mean, Renee
Tosca,
and Beverly Sills, of course, came up. Renee Fleming and Beverly Sills, of course, came up. And then you think, well, that's helpful, but it's also not, you know, my voice maneuvers differently. So then you just have to, you know, really put in the work yourself and be ready. I think that's the humility, because it takes a while to really know and choose and make very conscientious choices when you're doing something for the first time, because your body is still adjusting and learning, and your mood and your concentration and the production, all these values. But I would say, I trust my teacher, but I also, the more, my imagination has always it began with something very simple, which is the nature of my instrument was always lyric. Okay, so when someone looks at me, they even think Victoria de los Angeles, or they think Teresa Stratas, or they think of Ana Moffo or Maria Callas. Like all of these names start dropping in when people just look at me. And then if I sing and was influenced by Renata Scotto's recording of Adina, or, Alicia Tomor, they're like, oh, I heard how you did this. And it's like, yeah, because my imagination can stretch into appreciate Anna too. I mean, just seeing Anna live, how she sang Juliet with her full lyric, big, beautiful voice influenced me as well. I remember, so basically, number one is my own instrument in a way decides. I mean, I can challenge it and stretch it and see, but it just takes time to develop, and that was my experience. I think other people have an experience where their voice just moves. It moves and it wants to fly, and they can take a Handel aria and it's like, oh, blah, 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 scales, easy, no problem. Words, and they're done. Like, not that they're done, I mean the work, but it's kind of in a way, then they can start, they can sing Rossini, they can sing Handel, they can sing things that it's the last thing I would pick for myself. In one end, I love singing bel canto, but I only like the cavatina. I hate cavalettas. Basically, how slow can I go in them, But
well, so let's do a concert just with cavatinas.
Exactly. No. But I mean, in a way, I think the instrument decides, and then you can stretch. So I knew, for me, Montserrat Caballé, we know her for bel canto, but you have to hear her Strauss. You just have to. Yes. She started with that. She identified really well with that. Her Salome is incredible. And hearing her voice, for me, hearing a voice of a woman who is of Latin descent, it just changes it increases my frame and the view and perspective and dimension of a possibility. So Bidou Sayao I turned to Montserrat, I turned to Victoria de los Angeles, I turned to even Teresa Berganza to see like how she, sometimes people when I was younger were thinking, oh, she has this dark quality of her voice, maybe she's a mezzo, or actually I don't think that ever happened. I think somehow, thank God I skipped over that, because I think people thought Adina, Zerlina, Susanna, and I sang Susanna and it was successful. Or even a Marguerite in Faust, it's successful, but it's very interesting. My feeling is like, I need more music to sing a little higher tessitura. I want to sing slower. I don't want to be speaking in the staff all the time. So show me the Countess, and then I love the Countess and it just fits, and Pamina, but not everyone's going to offer Pamina, but just beautiful lyric, beautiful music.
Right. I think I could convince you to do Marguerite more. Actually.
Yes, no, I do. And I love her, but for me, it just doesn't go. The Jewel song.
Yeah, it's about a tessitura. It's about tension and release and tessitura and the general pass. Yeah. I have seen you have done some crossover too. What does that do to your voice? What does that do to your brain? How much
it connects me to sing mariachi, to sing in that style connects me, and I'm not trained in that way, and I know I would need to really work with someone and craft better to not get my operatic voice involved. But for me, it's very liberating because it's immediate soul and depth connection. And I'll never forget, it was actually a concert I had with one time with Jose Carreras, okay? And I sang Je Veux Vivre, I sang, we did El Gato en Montes, no, we did El Dúo del Africano, which is a lot of fun. he's so elegant,
Yeah.
and he has this
Hmm.
attitude, but it's
Very
elegant, and
aristocratic. Yeah.
yeah, but it's piquant. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
it could bite you if you you know, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
tongue in cheek. But he, once I sang Besame Mucho or Estrellita, he's like, there you are. He said, ahí estás, that's you. So bring that to your Juliet, bring that to your opera, don't forget that part. So for me, uh, that's what that music, I guess it just connects me in a way that it just connects me. It
Yeah.
just works. And then I can bring that, not forget that color or that attitude or the, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Like, for example, French. Je suis reine, right? What if I said, yo soy reina? I say it completely different. I actually then I give you an angle. I'm gonna look straight at you. I'm not thinking of the B. I'm not thinking, I just go. And why I don't connect straight away with the French, it's not that I don't love French or that doesn't fit. It's just something in you just line up.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's
So
just
so
you.
that connection between your personal soul, life, your culture, and your art, you can also see this another way. How do you remain sane in your personal life with the pressure of the roles and the career in general? What's your recipe?
The recipe is family and spirituality. I have to, again, the humility of it all. I mean, once this pandemic hit, and now we are all on our own, trying to put a song together with a friend who's going to send me, just the piano, and then I sing with him, and then we're going to record it. I mean, that is absolutely humbling. And it shows you, to me, for example, I have meditation, a practice of meditation that I do before a performance. And, I was doing Manon Vienna, right? So I remember one of the times was like, okay, it was about a performance, dealing with the performance anxiety of this. And you go through, and you hear all of the, the guru speaking about, like, and guiding you through this performance meditation, kind of like a sports performance visualization exercise. And I just, to remember that the last thing that was causing me panic put more perspective on life and art, completely, much more perspective. And it's because I don't have family. I mean, personal family. I don't have kids. And I put all of my energy into performing and wanting to be at that level as if it's the most important thing. And here we are, and I think, wait a minute. If we don't have each other, if we don't have a sense of, I can give you this, and not think about money, and not think about, the fears of not, basically, if I cannot come to you with a perspective of abundance, I can't love.
Yes.
I can't give, because I'm giving, like, here, have this, it's too afraid, it's not open, and it's not connected, and it's fear. It's just fear, and everyone has that. So that has been the biggest perspective, that we all are not perfect, that we all are not equally evolved in terms of dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, dealing with interpersonal relationships, goals, job, family life, how we are with our parents, how we are with our brothers and sisters, our cousins, our family. Like, everyone has their own way, and ultimately, even if it's not perfect, that doesn't even matter. What matters is the love that you have and can give each other, and the support and the quality and the attention and the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, and that's not the cash.
Right.
And
Not
it's
the
not
cash.
my performance, and it's not the show.
Exactly.
So it's
yeah.
like, oh,
yeah.
I mean, it sounds obvious, and you know,
no,
maybe, but it's very humbling, and you know, yeah, I don't know how else to describe it, and maybe that it's good that I feel really the difference of what happens when I'm home and actually have to give all of those things attention.
Right.
It's hard. It's really hard.
Right.
So it's interesting. And to be creative. I think also fear is the worst emotion to push us to be creative. It can, and I think that, you know, procrastinators, I think that there's a fear in a way that we put off what we should do straight away. So I think the perspective that I've gained is, okay, do one thing at a time, and like you're really required. I mean, right now it seems like nothing's requiring us to do anything, but we all know if we stop and think about the things that we haven't given attention to that really deserve it, whether it's working out, eating right, spending time with your loved ones, talking to your family, learning a new piece, reflecting, writing a letter. I mean, when's the last, I can't tell you the last time I ever wrote a letter. I mean, even texting, emails are so informal now. So if we really took this time to see how we actually, once we get past, you know, the waves of anxiety, part of what I'm noticing is, I notice that the people who love to work out are still working out. I notice the people who eat well still eat well. I also notice that, you know, from my demographic and being American, being Mexican, we are not taught to value the health of our bodies as well, like because it costs more, you know, or I don't know, or just our own diet is, you know, we need to encourage people to be healthy. Certainly, we're seeing with all the theaters closing, how our government is not, you know, like it's more apparent not only for the administrations that are going through the tough decision making, but even if we hold in mind that something could go on a different way and it's not right, ultimately there's still not a large enough support from our government in place to sustain and really support the arts at a level that they merit, you know, and a level that teachers merit to be supported as well.
Well, yes,
that's part of what socially has to hopefully change. But as we know, change is progress over time. But
right. So what you say is right on the point, and I think our industry is going to be changed dramatically after this. And we will understand more than ever, because we didn't have it, the value of live performance and being together. And we will have to think differently the way we are present in on the internet, in social media in general, and the way we connect. But we're getting at the end of our talk.
I see. Time flew by. So thank you so much for having me, and everyone at the Dallas Opera. We love you. That theater is so gorgeous, and I really hope that all sides of the community, that you're proud of this company, that you continue to follow its development with casting in the operas, and that we're here really to serve you, the audience.
Right.
And it's about beyond ourselves. It's about beyond even what we give you, but it's also everything. Opera is everything. It's all of the people sitting in the audience, and the people backstage, and the performers. We're here for you, humanity, broadly, universally.
Okay. We love you,
Love
Eileen.
you too.
Can't wait to see you in the flesh very soon. And be well and be safe.
Thank you,
Lots of love.
maestro.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you.